Do you buy that the Creighton Bluejays are a Final Four caliber team?
Yeah. Yeah, I do. I think that they are very, very good. And my hot take is that I think by the end of the season, everybody's going to realize that Ryan Kalkbrenner is not only the best defensive player in the Big East, not only the guy that we should be really looking at as a Big East Player of the Year candidate, but one of the best defensive players and one of the best big guys in all of college basketball. Then you surround that with 4 guys that can make shots, 3 guys that are able to make plays off the bounce, someone like Baylor Shireman that can come in and fill a role that we know that Greg McDermott loves, these dudes that just run off screens and shoot 35-foot threes and make them. Plus, Nemhard's coming back. Plus, we saw what Trey Alexander could do. I'm all in on Creighton. I understand why there are people that are like hesitant, but this is going to be a Greg McDermott team that added one of the best shooters in the country that finished last season ranked, I think it was 12th in defensive efficiency on KenPom. If you have a Greg McDermott team that is actually going to try to play defense, that is a scary thought to me.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a flip mode for Greg the last 3 years, really. COVID year and in the last 2, that defensively they've taken a big jump in the league, which everybody knows coach is one of the best offensive coaches in the country and always has been. And but now when you add a Kalkbrenner and you add some pieces like Kaluma and Trey and those.
He thinks he's back in the Valley, Val. That's what it is. He thinks he's back in the Missouri Valley.
Yeah, I'm trying, and so he's morphed to a defensive coach now, and so look, there's deep and versatile, and I think if you have those 2 things, and they got a pretty good point guard with a healthy Nembhard, they've got the components to make a run. No question about it. They turned the ball over a lot last year. Now they were young, they played a bunch of freshmen. Those guys got better as the season went on, and the shooting wasn't, even with Hawkins and McConnell, they weren't a classic McDermott team shooting the basketball, and so that's where Baylor comes in and some of the guys that they
had. I think Kaluma's going to he wasn't what he finished 27%. I think he's going to be a guy that makes like 35 to 37%.
When they came to Hinkle last year, we beat them at home, but we had no answer for him. He had like 16 as a freshman. They had all the young guys playing, and it was like, and I said to our staff, who's this kid? Like, I knew you heard about Nembhard in the in their incoming class, and it was like, who's this kid? Because he might be the one. I just think he's got all the ability to be a really good player in the Big East and beyond.
Here's the thing that's scary about them and why I love them so much, Scoop. We just talked about, I just said Ryan Kalkbrenner, I think, can be the best player in the Big East. You just heard Laval say that the guy that they had the most trouble with was Arthur Kaluma. We already talked about point guard, the point guard Nembhard. But if you ask some of the guys on that staff, like, they say that Trey Alexander might actually be the best player on their team this year. That's a scary thought, right? There's 4 guys that could be the best player on this team. 4 different smart basketball opinions that think that they could have a different guy is the best player on the team.
So you think Sean Miller can't pull it off, Xavier?
I mean, the thing is, like, you look at Creighton and you think about the fact that sophomore class, that's as good of a sophomore class as there is in the country. They were already going to be the preseason number 1 in the Big East with just their core back.
Yeah.
And then McDermott goes out and makes one of, if not the biggest splash in the transfer portal in Baylor Shireman, who's a Summit League Player of the Year, phenomenal season, multifaceted, one of the most efficient players in the country. Don't discount Fran Farabello, who can add perimeter shooting too. He was one of TCU's best shooters last year. Like, Scoop, they got even better.
And don't forget, there is a Miller on that team. Mason Miller is on that. No one talks about Mason Miller, who, by the way, has the highest standing vert on that roster.
So this Creighton team, Final Four team.
Yeah. Are you with me, Scoop? You're
in? I'm sold. I'm sold.
You're in on the Bluejays. Laval, for a moment here, like, on Creighton, hosting them versus going there. Omaha is unlike any other trip.
It's 2 different. It's like you're playing 2 different teams.
Yeah.
I've never, I've maybe seen it, at maybe a couple different places. And it was funny because we had some guys, Emerson Campus on our staff, Brandon Crone. Those guys were there with Coach Holtman before I came into, and so they tried to tell me, hey, Coach, because we beat them at home. And we were going back to Creighton. They're like, well, they play different when you go to Creighton. And you're a coach, so it's like, yeah, I hear you. Everybody, you have a little more juice at home, maybe. I don't know if I buy that, but the fans are there, and it was like they didn't miss. I mean, it was we came out and they had Mitch Ballack and all those guys. I mean, they're shooting from 35 feet, and the staff, Brandon and Emerson are looking at me like, we tried to tell you it's different when you come here, and we somehow always got them on like either the cancer awareness game where everybody's wearing pink or dollar beer night. Which we got no shot.
Hey, Laval, tell them about dollar beer night because I don't know how many people know about dollar beer night.
It's 16,000 people in this dollar beer night in Omaha, Nebraska. We got no chance. Yeah,
you got no shot. You got Steve Lavin firing a t-shirt cannon into the crowd.
And
all I gotta say is Fox Sports, please never put John Fanta on that call because I don't know if my man is going to be able to control himself on dollar beer night. We already seen what you do on the field of 68 when Miller Lights show up.
Laval, we'll go out. We'll do dollar beer night, right, Laval?
Yeah, I'll drive you home.
I'm gonna need it.
I'm gonna need they do for the it's for Greg to be able to integrate Ryan Hawkins like he did last year. And that's for him to be an all Big East player and coming in as division. But they needed him to do that, and so the transfer of Baylor Shireman. I mean, he had 83 threes last year at 47%. That is remarkable. And so if he can integrate in the same way as Ryan Hawkins did, that's a huge piece because they did lack some shooting, just percentage-wise shooting, and guys that could make. You'll hear me say this probably all night, just because we struggled with shooting the last few years at Butler. Like, you can't if you got two or three guys that you got to get out to that can create some gravity on the court, it is a huge deal. It's huge for Kalkbrenner. The guys can't pack the paint.
Right.
So that means Nembhard's got to shoot it better. Kaluma's got to shoot it better. And, if they've made those developmental jumps, they're going to be hard to match up with.
Hey, Scoop, let me ask you this. For point guards, right? How big is that learning curve from freshman to sophomore year? Like, how much more do you know? How much more comfortable are you running an offense? I think for point guards more than any other position, that's the biggest learning curve spot.
That's a big leap too, from your freshman to your sophomore, because that's all it is really. You really don't know going in as a freshman. So when your sophomore year, I always say that's the year you already seen everything. Especially if you played too, you really got to play. You already know how teams playing you now. And that's the second year that you should really have a big jump, I would say, if you played as well. I played with a guy, Deion Wade, his freshman year. Mm-hmm. He played the same exact minutes he played his freshman year. He played his sophomore year. He averaged 7 points his freshman year. Sophomore year, 13 points. Number 4 pick. Never started again. But he just knew his role. He understood how the team was going to play. He jumped up 6 extra points with the same exact minutes.
Boeheim never yelled at you and waiters.
You lying. He never yelled at Trish. He knew he can yell. If he know he can yell at you, he's going to yell at you. Like, we was guys, I guess we were from Philly. I don't know. He knew he can yell at us. We would respond, and that's what he did. And when I first got to Syracuse, I was I'm coachable. I was very coachable, but like, I had to learn Boeheim. I was too coachable. He liked dogs. Like, he wanted you to be, and yeah.
That's you.
He wanted you to yell back is what it was.
I guess. I don't know. He
right.
He felt like he can pick on us, so he yelled at us a lot, especially me.
Another thought on Creighton here. We give you nuggets on the field of 68. This is one of those guys that wows me with Creighton. I don't think the country understands this. Creighton has won 20 or more games in 22 of the last 24 seasons. The only programs that have done that more, Gonzaga, Kansas, and Duke.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Like Creighton's consistency and the way that they have, they took it from the Valley to the Big East. As much as the Big East has been great for Creighton, Laval, like Creighton has been huge for the Big East Conference.
No question. It's a program that's been relevant for a long time. When I was at Iowa, we would talk about, I was at Iowa for 3 years and we were recruiting. It was like, we need to keep some of the Iowa guys. Kyle Korver, like we need to keep him in Iowa. He needs to come to Iowa instead of, going to Creighton. Some of those guys that they would come in and recruit did a great job with Dana Altman. And so for years, like Creighton's been extremely relevant in the Missouri Valley and beyond, the A-10 and now the Big East. So it's always been a really good job. And they come out, the home court is real. It's the fans that got great support. And
they got NIL.
Yeah, and they're doing a great job with NIL, and so I think everybody there gets, when you get into these opportunities, everybody being in alignment and being on the same page, like everybody there gets it and they understand what Creighton basketball is doing for the university, it's doing for the community, and so they're all behind it, and that makes a huge difference.